back to Off the Top podcast with your co-host Jorge Barrionuevo. I'm here. It's been a long time since I've been able to talk to you. I know that I've been doing a lot of things off the scene, just trying to get people onto the podcast. Sometimes really tough. I don't know. Most of y'all know I'm a high school student still. I'm a senior this year, and it's just really rough, man. Really different atmosphere here, new schedule. A lot of things that I want to do sometimes, but I want to dedicate my time. Want to do this later on, and I'm willing to bring on more people. And today I brought on a guest that I know for a very long time, 6, 7 plus years. And ever since I met him, I just learned more about him. He's been able to grow his business, do his own thing, and I just brought him on just to inspire y'all kids, who probably don't know what to do after college or just trying to wonder, what your life might be later on. So how you doing, Mr. George?
I'm fine, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. So just tell us a little bit about your story. How this became, and like how you became who you are today.
Well, I was born here in Bradley County. I've lived 47 out of 53 years in Bradley County. Went to high school up in Charleston, which don't exist. Became Walker Valley.
Yeah.
I'd failed my senior year. I was confused what I was going to do back then. Really didn't know what I was going to do. Back then, you had a lot of generation that didn't finish high school, and I'd failed my senior year, and I didn't go back. And I had some pretty lucky opportunities along the way, and sometimes you don't know there are opportunities till later down the line. You looked at it, that was a good step to make. At the time, you're just trying to survive or get through life, so to speak, trying to learn to tread the waters, I guess would be the way to say it.
So, like, when you were in that situation, like, what was one thing that, like, you probably thought, like, I know that you had friends that went to college and stuff like that, but, like, what was one thing that just, like, kept you, like, locked in what you were trying to do?
Well, I always knew I kind of wanted to fool with real estate since I was a teenager, but I didn't know how I was going to get there.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a fellow I ran into at the grocery store, and he told me that the construction company at Olin Chemical was hiring, and they was working 410s. I thought that'd be a good thing. I could do something else on the weekends. That would be perfect. Well, I didn't get on with the company he did. I got on with a different company, but I got on with that. It was going to be temporary, and it lasted for 23 years.
Yeah.
So, but along that way, I found a house, bought a house, and it was owner financed, which was an opportunity. Back then, I just wanted to buy a house.
Yeah.
I was 21 years old.
Oh.
And you live next door to that house.
Yeah.
And, well, I don't own that house no more. But anyway, I bought that, and then as I started out with that construction company at Olin Chemical, well, then I got hired full-time at Olin some years later.
Yeah.
So, it was just what you didn't think would be an opportunity then turned out to be a, good opportunity through life.
Yeah.
I did mention that I did fail my senior year, and a few years later I went and did go get my GED.
Oh, okay.
It took more than one time, but you just had to keep taking it till you got it.
Yeah. But, like, I mean, one thing that I would say is, like, a lot of kids are afraid of that. I feel like a lot of kids, are afraid of, like, now I think the stigma is, like, go to college and do whatever you got to do with your life and stuff like that. But I've always said, me as a Hispanic kid, I know a lot of kids that don't go to college, a lot of kids that probably, are thinking about what they're going to do later, but they don't really know. And so
I didn't know what direction I was going to go. I kind of weaned it for a long time, and it's turned out to be pretty good.
Yeah. No, yeah, like, I've always spoke really highly of you because, like, a lot of people in the Hispanic community, like, we rent from other people, and we don't usually buy houses because, like, we know that we're probably not going to be here for long enough. I'm probably going to move back to our own houses in Mexico, stuff like that. But, like, me, I've been here my whole life. My mom, she's been here her whole life. So I kind of feel like, now, like, so all this time I've known you and stuff like that, I've just always thought about that. Like, how you had already told me your story about how, like, I never graduated high school, but, like.
Yeah, you asked me a long time ago, and I know it does shock people.
Yeah.
But you asked me a long time ago. So where did I go? What did I take in college, or where I went to college? And I remember looking at you, and I said, I quit high school, and you just like Okay, you really didn't believe me at the
Yeah, I thought
time.
you were playing.
No, I did. I did.
No, yeah, nah,
I
that's
mean,
one thing, bro. That I
there's
like.
nothing wrong with education. I'm
Yeah,
not. A friend of mine said, "Don't go in there and say don't go to college." But you want to go to college for something that's going to pay you, make it worth your
yeah,
while. You don't want to go in there and have a nowadays with the student loan thing.
yeah.
You don't want to have something you're going to be that's really not going to be worth what you're paying on, like a English degree. It ain't going to pay you enough to make your student loan payments, so to
Yeah,
speak. But there's other opportunities, and in this area in Cleveland, Tennessee, we have a lot of factories.
yeah,
Uh, there's opportunities there. It might not look like opportunities. And I remember there was a young engineer came to Olin, and me and him were talking one day, and he was fresh out of college.
yeah,
And me and him were talking one weekend, just buddy to buddy, so to speak, not boss to employee. And it turned out I made more a month than he did. Now, granted, he was working 60 hours. I was working 60 hours a week, and he was working 40, and I was working nights and holidays and weekends where
yeah,
he got that off because he went to college. So there was some sacrifice in there
yeah,
along the way. Whereas I went to college, I wouldn't be working nights and weekends, if that makes any
yeah.
sense.
Yeah, but I remember you said something about I know your father. He's like he was into the real estate stuff
My
a
dad
lot too.
was, yeah. My dad had rental property. I had
Yeah.
rental property. My dad also worked at Olin Chemicals.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, well, I got into real estate before he did.
Oh, okay,
And then
okay.
he had retired, and he saw me having pretty good success with it. So he just decided that he was going to do that too.
Yeah,
And now he's passed away now, and I manage his
yeah,
units and manage my own. But and sales of real estate is something you can do. Uh, it takes a while to get established, but it's a 3-week class
yeah,
basically to get your license, and you're good to go.
yeah,
Uh, but real estate has been a good tool for me to get through life, I should say.
Yeah, what's crazy is like here at the high school, we actually have a class called personal finance, and so that class teaches you a lot about. I already took the class. Class is really good. There's a guy, he's from New York. We call him Coach Marino, but his real name is Tom, and like he's my soccer coach. He was like my assistant soccer coach,
Okay.
but he was more not really a coach like about soccer. He was more about just like personal. Like he would try to like what I'm saying, help you out just personally, and ever since like he would always tell me about investments and stuff like that you could make just working with stocks or different types of
Yeah.
stuff.
And if you get a job and it's tough, um, like at a factory, M&M Mars, I'm sure has one,
Yeah.
Volkswagen, they have these things, and I did well through them, called a 401k, where you put in some money each month, and the company will match so much of that money.
Yeah.
And you're starting out, I can't afford that, and I didn't do it. I should have. I have a friend that did that, and he, like from ground floor, he did it. And when the recession hit in 2008, he was sitting there talking. He goes, "Me and my wife's 401k's down to $750,000." And I said, "I don't think I'll ever feel your pain," because I never had, But the 401k is an opportunity that I kind of missed that I should have,
Yeah.
But there's opportunity, and they don't look like opportunities because
Yeah.
when we're young, we think we're going to live forever.
Yeah.
It's Now I'm in my 50s, and I'm thinking, okay, I've got 20, good years left, and you're going
Yeah.
to hit bad health at best. We're not guaranteed tomorrow, but anything can happen.
Yeah.
But we, like the biggest thing is, you couldn't repeat what I did because the rules are different in the game.
Yeah.
But there's opportunities out there, and it might not look like an opportunity when you take it, but they are opportunities to take along the way. Even if you go to college or don't go to college, there's sacrifices along the way. It ain't gonna be the yellow brick road all the way through life, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I guess that's the best way to put it.
No, yeah, I think that's one of the things that I've always picked up, from other people. I always like talking to people, who I know that did their own thing. Like I told you, like that's one thing that I had never heard from an adult. Most of the time, you hear like these guys like, "Oh yeah, I went to college to go be this and that." And you're like, "Okay, that's cool," But like I feel like that story is so repetitive. And so when I heard your story, I remember I was kind of shocked because I told my mom, I was like, damn, Mr. George has like this house, he has the other house down the street, and then he has a couple apartments and stuff like that. And my mom was like, "Oh yeah," she's like, "Where did he go to college from?" I was like, I haven't asked him, so I decided to ask you. And then when I told her that you didn't finish high school, you had to go back and go get your GED, she was like, "For real?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "That's crazy because he's like, my mom was like, just most like American guys, like they go to college, like they don't decide to like, okay, I'm not gonna go to college." Like he's like, my mom was like, it's weird like when you hear a guy who's like American and is successful and never went to college, you know.
There's some out there.
Yeah, and that's what I told my mom. I was like, nah, that's crazy because I was like now I look at Mr. George and yeah, he's getting older and stuff like that, but like he still has everything, like, you know what I'm saying, where when he grew up, you know, and that was like one thing that like I always thought about. I was like, yo, you were in your early 20s when you bought your first house, but like how was that like process now? Because I know now the process to buy a house is like way different than what it was before.
Like I have mentioned, opportunity.
Yeah.
And everybody gets a different set. I didn't like. I had an apartment I was renting, and my daddy, he said it'd be nice if you could find your little house.
Yeah.
Well, you know, things work in mysterious ways. Well, guy at work, he had a little old house. It wasn't the most desirable neighborhood to live in. He said, "I'll sell you that house." He said, "You give me so much down, and I'll finance it for you." And he financed that house for me. So that was my first house. And I lived in that little house for about 6 years. It wasn't the best place, but, you know, you got to crawl before you can walk.
Yeah.
And I lived in that little house 6 years, and then I moved on to a nicer house.
Yeah.
Had some equity in it. Anytime, you know, most Americans build wealth through real estate. There's been a few situations along the year where the real estate retracted, but usually when it comes back higher than it was before it went down.
Oh, okay.
But then I moved to another house, and I'm in my third house, and I'm probably thinking it's my final home that I'll ever live in. I don't really see me ever moving again. I've thought about it. It's bigger than what I need, but it's all good.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I remember the first time I went to your house, you were gonna change like a stove or something like that, and you asked me for help. And I told my mom, I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go to Mr. George's house," and then she was like, "Oh, he probably lives in a big house," and I was like, "I don't know. I've never been there." And then I remember we went, and then on our way there, you lived like in just some country place, like it was
I live out in the country.
Yeah, all out there, and like I was like, I remember when we put into your driveway, and I was like, "Damn, Mr. George, you got a big house, man, for yourself."
It's a little bit of an illusion, but it is big, but it's not as big as it looks. It's up on a hill, and I've got a 3-car garage attached to the house, so that makes it look bigger, and it's got a steep roof. But it's not a mansion, but it's bigger than what I need.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember you told me something about all the land you had around your house, but you just didn't know how to like you say that you didn't even know like what was out there, like having the stuff that was out there, because you said that you just had a bunch of land around your house or something.
I've got
like
about 12 acres around my house. My grandfather had bought, he dairy farmed right over the hill from my house.
Oh, okay.
And he bought he bought 200 acres in the late 40s, from what I understand. And back then that land was, he gave $10,000 for that 200 acres, which is, you know, sounds crazy today. Well, there was a little company come to town in the early 50s called Bowater.
Yeah, Bowater.
And Bowater, he had a bunch of unused land. It was rocky, hilly. Just if you wanted to farm cedar trees, that's what it was good for.
Yeah.
And Bowater came and bought 100 acres from him for $23 or $25 an acre. And now the land's like $10,000 an acre. And for the, you know, but I live on 12 acres of that 100 acres that my grandfather sold to Bowater. And it's a little sentimental because it was his, and you know, and sometimes I like it out there, and sometimes I think I'm too far from town, but you know, if I got in town, I'd want to be back out in the country, and it's hard to live in the country now.
Yeah, that's one thing I was gonna ask you about the pricing out there, because I know that like living in the country, one thing it's fun because I feel like you're kind of like you're free to do whatever you want, kind of. You know, your neighbors are probably just as you. You know, they're trying to do their own
We
thing.
shoot our guns, ride our four-wheelers, let our dogs run loose, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's one thing. Like my mom, she's always wanted to live out in the country, but I always tell my mom like living out in the country is like when you get older. I feel like because when you're young, you got kids and stuff like that. The city's way more convenient because
Remember,
like I
talked
think
to a
buses
fella.
run.
He had a house. Buses run out where I live.
Oh, okay.
But I talked to a fella. He had a house over the hill from mine, and he got the opportunity to buy a house here in Cleveland. And I asked him one day, he lived on the river and had a very nice home. And I asked him one day, just ran into him randomly. I said, how you like living in town? Because I was thinking I wouldn't, he had 2 kids at the time, and I wouldn't want to give up my river home.
Yeah.
And I said, how you like living in town? He said, you're not going to believe this, but I love it. He said, when I used to get off work at Bowater, I would have to go sit in town for 3 hours to wait for my daughters to get through with their dance class before we could go home, you know, because they'd have it at different times.
Yeah.
He said, now I can go home, I can jump up and go get one, come back. You know, he liked the conveniences there of living in town. And there's good and bad, but if you got kids and they're involved in stuff, probably living in town would be better, you know. But if I live by myself, so you know, it works out for me. My brother lives across the hill. Well, both my brothers live in the same vicinity that I do, probably within a mile of me.
Oh, that's cool though. If you have your brothers like right beside you and stuff like that.
Well, some we get along with and some we don't.
Yeah.
There's good and bad about having family close by.
No, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Because sometimes they might be in your business. Like I said, there's good and bad.
No, yeah, like, what's one thing that you would say now that you're older that like changed your financial mentality? Because I feel like you said like when you were young, like you were just working.
Working, and you know, you think you hope everything comes out.
Yeah.
But you know, you don't know. You know, you can run into some scary situations like when we had the recession in '08. A little scary in the real estate, but the real estate came back to be worth more than it would have been if I hadn't probably been in a recession.
Yeah.
But everybody's got their little glitch of what works for them. Not everything is going to work for the same person. You know, everybody's got their. You could give me a field full of cars, and I love cars, but I probably couldn't make money on them because of my love for them. Real estate was my thing where I made my money. I had, I worked a job, but I blew all my money or was trying to buy something.
Yeah.
And I had a good, you don't want to burn bridges. I'd met a banker back when I was about 31.
Yeah.
And me and him are still friends to this day. He's a Cleveland, Tennessee resident.
Okay.
And he, when I wanted to buy something, we had that relationship. And it was easy. I won't say it was easy. Sometimes it was harder than other times because he can be your friend, but he still has a job. He still has guidelines. But he made it possible for me to get kind of where I'm at, loaning the money and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He's bounced around to some banks here in town, and at one time he banked from my dad, me and my nephew, so he was banking 3 generations of our family. But that's one of those contacts you got to make along the way.
Yeah.
And sometimes they can be good, and sometimes it might not turn out so good, but you don't ever really want to burn that bridge, because you don't know who you're going to need where down the line.
No, yeah, there's one thing I always say, like, constantly. Every single time that I brought somebody on, like, I didn't have the Cleveland football coach here. I've had state championship coaches on here. I had a state champ wrestling team on here before. It's just like I bring on a lot of people who inspire others, and that's one thing that I always said about you was something that I always thought about was like, I know there's so many kids here right now in the school that are probably going to listen to this and going to be like, dang, like, I don't even know what I want to do after high school. But whatever that guy said, that's interesting.
Most people don't know what they're going to do after high school. It's hard at 18 years old to decide, okay, this is what I want to do for the next 30 or 40 years. Some people do, but, I have a friend, and she had 2 daughters that went up here to Tennessee Wesleyan. And I think one of them, in her 4-year degree, she changed her major twice, trying to get through college. She didn't know what she wanted. And I don't know if she still knows. I mean, she's going to graduate next year with a therapy degree, therapy license, but which is a good field to get in.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I don't think that's what she wasn't sitting there. You know, coming out of high school, I want to be an occupational therapist.
Yeah.
You
No,
know.
yeah, that's true. I feel like that's one thing about college that I've told a lot of like, what happens with a lot of athletes is probably what's the saddest part because, like, I've told a lot of athletes already, like, I think going to college, you know, you might be going to Tennessee Wesleyan or Bryan, these small colleges that are around, you know, that where you can actually go and play. But those type of colleges come and pick up kids from other nations. Like they go and call kids from other nations that come play at their college, right? Sometimes you're a state player, so these guys bring you in because they're like, oh, he was a good state player or whatever. But they will always pick a kid that comes from England, like, just because he has a different nationality on his name, that will earn him a spot that you can't take back, you know. And that's one thing that I've told so many athletes. I'm like, look, you might be called up to a college and you might think, oh, shoot, you know, they want me to play and all this. But trust me, college is a business. When you get there, colleges don't care about anything. They care about your money. So I was like, so one thing that matters, bro, is they don't care if you don't show up to class, if you fail your class. That doesn't matter. They're still getting their payments.
They're still getting their money.
And so that's one thing, like, that I've always said is, like, you know, in college, I feel like sometimes you don't know what you want to do, you know, and you go into college and you're like, you know what, I'm going to cruise to college because you probably think you're going to be in the NFL or the NBA or you're going to play soccer at the next level. But I feel like by the time that you're done with college and you realize, like, oh, shoot, you know what, like, I did an easy career because I wanted to go through high school so I could keep on playing and I wouldn't be failing my classes. And now I'm going to be a gym teacher for the rest of my life, or I'm going to be an English teacher for the rest of my life. Can't even pay what I owe now.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's one thing that I say all the time. Like, I feel like if you're going to go to college, I feel like you should go for something that is worth it. Something that is going to make you double or triple what you put in.
Something's
you know?
going to pay you.
Yeah, something that's going to be an investment, I feel like. Because I feel like college can be an investment or it can be a debt. It's one of the two. Like, you can go in debt and then not get what you thought you were going to get out of that and just lost all that money. Or you can, like, get out of it and be able to double or triple the money you put in. You know, and so I think that's one thing that I would say.
I had a lady come to me
different.
one time, and I know we've had a lot of student loan on the news stuff, but anyway, this was 10 years ago. Matter of fact, the lady lives where you live now, but she was fixing to draw her Social Security, and she had went to think you're not going to get out of that student loan. Sometimes you may, but she had went to some kind of card school in Las Vegas and got a student loan for it, like back in the 70s, but she never paid for it. And when and it just kept accruing interest and interest and interest.
Yeah.
When she went to draw her Social Security, they garnished 25% of that Social Security to pay on that student loan that she had got 35, 40 years ago, which I thought was just crazy.
Yeah.
I thought, God, you really can't get out of that.
Yeah.
It follows you to your grave.
No, yeah.
And there's things in finance, you know, if you make a mistake, you buy a car, you buy a house, you can, I never have, but you can file bankruptcy. A student loan, when you take that out, it's with you till you die. That's, I mean, you can't file bankruptcy. You have to, and they accrue interest and accrue interest. You know, it's a good tool if you're going to use it right, but it's not if you're not going to use it right.
Like I've heard so many times different terms. Like people say, like, oh yeah, going in debt is making an investment, but you gotta know how. You're gonna know if that investment is worth it. Like any other investment you'll make in your life, when you go and buy a car, when you go buy a house,
losing money, you know.
Yeah, like
I like cars, but
they're gonna lose their value over time.
Yes.
Yeah, so like that's one thing that they always told us is like before you buy a car, buy a house, because like if you buy your house and you know what I'm saying,
typically goes up in value.
You're gonna be able to double or triple in a couple years from now. Like recently, this past market that was blowing up this past year, or even at the beginning of the year this year, where the houses were super expensive here in Cleveland. We had never seen that before. Houses here were super cheap. Not a lot of people were here now. I remember like when I was younger, like you could drive on Keith Street and there wasn't much like traffic. Now you're driving at Keith Street right now at 2 p.m., 3 p.m. It's packed. The city's full now. It's like, everywhere you go, they're building new houses. They're dropping trees. There's construction sites all over the place.
I know your neighborhoods they built new houses down in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know, it's the housing market in general is what it's done in the last 5 years is just crazy. I never thought I would see it do that. Rents are sky high. You know, it's and it ain't just here. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
You want to talk about just a friend that her daughter just got a occupational therapist degree. She's in Knoxville, and I mean, she has a roommate, but her rent's $2,000 a month.
Yeah, which is
You know,
crazy.
and we think around here, you know, if you're going to hunt something to live in, you probably need to budget in your mind 1,000 a month.
Yeah.
You may find something a little higher or something a little cheaper, but you need to kind of get an idea of $1,000 a month.
Yeah,
We,
which is
you know, and
crazy.
5 years ago, we're thinking, man, $1,000 a month, that's crazy. But if you get around Chattanooga or Knoxville, no,
That's normal.
it's still a cheap place to live.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that is like real now that I've realized. You know, a lot of people that come now that are Hispanics, you know, they ask us like, "Oh, how much you pay rent?" And I say how much I pay, and they're like, "Oh, no way!" Like they're like crazy and stuff like that. And I'm like, bro, honestly, like I feel like the area where we live, like I've been there for so long. Like I've been there for 6, 7 years. My little brother is now 7 years old. When I got there, he was crawling, you know.
Right.
And so like now, you know, my neighbors, Mr. Jason, Mr. Tim up front, everybody's been cool with me, you know.
I remember you told me one time we rode up to New York State, and
Oh yeah, we went to
everybody
New York.
looks at something different,
Yeah.
you know. And I knew, you know, your mom's from Mexico, so where she lives, it's an upgrade for her.
Yeah.
You know, from where she came from, that's an upgrade. Now we look at, you know, it's a rough part of town, don't want to live there, you know, but
Yeah.
she looks at it as an upgrade. You know, it's probably one of the nicest places she's lived.
Yeah.
But I remember you talking about you lived in an apartment before you came to rent from me.
Yeah.
And you said I had a new neighbor every month.
Yeah, that's true.
And you
That's
said I've
true.
had the same neighbors the whole time I've lived there. You know,
Yeah.
everything's a little different situation.
Yeah, it's much different because when I came from, when I was little, I used to live in a street called Berry Street.
Barry, I know where
Yeah.
Barry Street is.
When I was a little kid, gang violence and drugs were really high there when I was
Okay.
little, when I was really little. And, you know, I just didn't really think about it like that. You know, I was just a kid, you know, I didn't really think much about it. But multiple times, a lot of like really bad stuff happened to me when I was there. And I just learned a lot of things as I grew up. Most of the things I learned were more in the streets because my parents worked a lot. My mom, she didn't come back home until 5. My dad didn't come back until 7. So sometimes I
Kinda
get
like
out of school.
Get out of school at 3, and you
Yeah.
got 2 hours to.
Yeah, just be out
Run
there in the
around.
streets. Yeah, so it was just
I was
like
kind of like that in
Yeah.
Augusta.
yeah, that's the thing. Like for me, it was just like normal. You know, all my cousins lived around me, and we lived in these apartments, and all those apartments were full Hispanics. It was full Hispanics, like one whole apartment complex, and then in front of us was just a bunch of African Americans. So my whole life, you know, I was in the mix. You know, I knew so many kids, and I went to three different elementaries as I grew up because I was moving so much. But like as time went by, you know, I was really easy to become friends with people, really easy to talk to people. I never really had a conflict with nobody. And so I remember as I got older, like we started moving, going to different places, and I was just witnessing so many changes. Like I told you, you know, like when I was living at the other apartments close to Mayfield, there was just so many things going on. Like every month there was a new neighbor I had. Like somebody got kicked out, couldn't pay rent, and they're out of there. And just like that. And then my mom would always say, like, you know, one thing that you'll never see is a Hispanic with his family on the streets, you know, asking for money. Like my dad would always like inflict that on us. Like my uncles would always say that, like, one thing about the Hispanic community is like we work hard, you know, and
Y'all do work hard.
and that's one thing that, you know, I feel like we earn our respect with. People respect us not because of where we come from or who we are. I feel like it's more because of how hard they see we work, you know, and like I always tell my mom all the time, like, that's one thing that people can't take away from you are things that you learn how to do, like, when you had nothing. And I feel like that's one thing that I always, like, saw in you was, like, oh, you know what, like, even though he didn't go to high school and stuff like that, like, I always see, oh, you're mowing or you're out of town doing other stuff and you're helping out people. And so I feel like that's just good for the community because, like, I see all the guys that, like, when I used to work at the restaurant, I would see you hang out with all these older men. You know, I'd be like,
Well, when you're not working in your 50s, there's not many people in their 50s that's not working, so you got to go hang out with the older people.
no, but I feel like that's good because my whole life I grew up around older people. Like guys, all my friends are 20 plus. You know, so like all the guys I know now, like 2 of them didn't go to college. They finished high school, didn't go to college. One of them is in the concrete business, and the other one's doing roofing. You know, and they're both owners of their own company. They're only 25 years old. So
And they
like,
started that service. They saw
Yeah.
a void where it was needed, and you know, might be a mowing company, landscaping, concrete, you know, but there's, you know, other things you can do besides college.
yeah.
But I'm not here to down college, but get something that's worth the while. You know, don't borrow a bunch of student loan money and have a degree that nobody wants to use you in.
Yeah.
That would be my point. College is nothing wrong with college, but you don't have to go there. We live in this area. There's a lot of jobs, a lot of opportunity without it. College may pad it for you a little bit, just like I was talking about the guy that worked 40 hours a week, but I was working 60, but but now he's making probably a whole lot more than I am.
Yeah.
But he got his experience and went on, because when you come out of college, you can go to college and, it's good, be proud of that college degree. But then you got to start somewhere, and you got to get that experience.
Yeah.
You're not just going to come out of college and everything's going to be a success. You're going to have failures just like you did or didn't go to college. You got to get that experience. You got to keep working. This job ain't working out. You do have like a little padding in life if you go to college.
Yeah.
Like when company when I worked at Olin Chemical, there'd be ups and downs, and I made good money. But I thought, if this don't work out, what am I going to do? Got a horse and back, go back to another factory and start all over and work back up. But I didn't have to do that, thank God. But you just don't ever know what's going to happen, because I was there and they had a couple of layoffs. Well, you want to make yourself look the best you can, and college does help, but you want to.
I feel like hard work is what matters more. Like what you're trying to say is like, you showing that you're the quality guy for the job, shows a lot about yourself. I think that comes with responsibility, with just hard work. Being able to be reliable, I think that's the most important part.
Yeah.
Because one thing I would say that like you say is like, I'm a kid, I'm 16 years old, but I've worked multiple jobs growing up. And now this past job that I worked was concrete. I was throwing concrete. I was pouring concrete all summer. It's part of the reason why I didn't drop any episodes over the summer, was because I was working concrete all summer. Every year, I just have a habit. Ever since I've been in middle school, when I was in 8th grade, I got my first job, and I was 12 years old. I was working with a guy. We were changing engines and stuff like that with cars.
Yeah.
And I'd always liked cars growing up. I had an uncle. He liked cars a lot. He lived with me for a while at the house. And like he was really good with cars and stuff like that. And I remember when I was 12, I bought the Acura I have now. And my uncle just kept it at his house. And, like, every single weekend I would go sometimes and work on it with him. And we would work on it together. And when he went to Mexico, he just told me, he's like, hey, you know what? Like, I gave him my money. All the money I had saved up. I had, like, $2,000 or something like that. And I told him, like, I was going to pay $2,000 for it. And so we met the guy, and the guy said it was cool, that he would give it to me for $2,000. Just it needed help. It needed work inside. And I was like, all right, basic. The engine runs well. Everything's nice. He's like, it's just the inside. The interior's all ripped up. It's old. And I was like, all right, it's cool. So that happened. Then we checked the whole engine and everything. And I was working with this older guy. And he was really good with engines. He could destroy a whole engine and put it all back together. It would look like a big mess. He'd be like, dude, I don't think he's going to be able to put my car back. But he did it, bro. He was just really good with it. So I learned a lot from him. And then I just went going to other jobs. In school, when I was in school, I wanted to keep on working. So I started working in restaurants. And I worked here at Monterey, which is across the street from now. But I worked there for a while. And then I moved to different restaurants. I went to OK Magay. That was probably the last restaurant I worked at. And then when I left OK Magay, I was there for a whole year. I knew everything there in that restaurant because when I was at Monterey, they gave me a chance to learn everything. So when I already knew everything, and then I went to that restaurant, most of the people that were there were just new. You know, they never knew nothing. So I was more reliable there because they're like, okay, you know what, like, he knows how to do this and that. Mm-hmm. He's more flexible.
Make yourself an asset.
Yeah, so it was way more easier. Like, Alfredo, he always told me, like, hey, you know what, like, you're a good kid. Even though you're young, like, you know how to do all that. So I can leave you in charge here, and I can leave. So I would do so many things for restaurants, stuff like that. But as time went by, you know, like you say, you feel like you got to move on. You know, you got to let that go and move on. So, and my mindset was like, you know what, I've been in this restaurant business, like, industry for, 2-3 years now of my high school time. And I kind of feel like it's time to let it go because I feel like I'm getting comfortable being here, and I don't like that. You know, I feel like you got to move up.
Get complacent on where you're at.
Yeah, so I thought in my head because, you know, there's some older guys that were there that are probably like 30, 40, you know, and that's their life.
I knew, and you probably know him, but there was a fella that I went, and I walked into the new Mexican restaurant in the former Denny's. Mm-hmm. He said he had been a waiter. He worked at Monterey. And he had been a waiter for 17 years. So he got in that rut. And he might enjoy that, you know. But, you know, in the long run, he may make money for that week, but he's not making money for the future. Yeah. If he is, I'm surprised, I should say, because I like to eat at restaurants, but I've never worked in one because I thought if I ever If I ever worked in one, I probably would want to eat at one.
Yeah, facts. That's true. That's really true. I feel like all the time that I worked in a restaurant, I got to the point where you just get tired of that food. Like you don't want to eat that same food anymore. And I feel like you're right, because being a waiter, like at some points I was so cool with so many people in that restaurant, Mr. George. Like like I knew almost everybody who would come through the door. They were regulars sometimes, so I already knew who they were. So all the time we were cool. There's a guy called Kirk. He's a short guy, bald guy, and he would always sit and watch the Tennessee games on Saturdays. And he would always
free
tell
chips
me,
and beer. And
he would always tell me, like, hey, can you put the Tennessee game on? I was like, yeah, I got you. And I would always put it on for everybody. Everybody was sitting in the bar watching the TVs and stuff. And I remember, like, one day I used to have an iPhone 8. And I was rocking the iPhone since the first time I ever got my first check. It was really sentimental to me because my first check I ever had when I was 12 years old, the first thing I bought was a phone. I didn't have a phone.
Was it an iPhone 4S?
No, it was an iPhone 8, bro. At that time, like the iPhone 8 was still kind of new because I think the iPhone 10 had just came out. So, like to me, I thought I was in glory. Like I didn't think much about it. Like my whole life, I had dreamed. You know what I'm saying? Like one day I'm gonna work and I'm gonna buy the things I need. And like that was like my main goal, just to like buy something like I really wanted. Like after I worked and I just kept it for so many years until this year I changed, and it was because my phone gave up on me. It like burned up and I couldn't charge it no more, and like it just didn't work at all. So I had to go get a new one, but I really didn't want to, but I had to. So that happened, and as time went by, like I remember that day they were like picking on me, like, George, why you have this iPhone, man? Your iPhone's all cracked and stuff. And I was like, bro, it still works. As long as it calls, it don't matter. And they would make fun of me, like, bro, I know you're making money, bro. Like, go buy you a new phone. I'm like, nah, bro, it ain't time. I don't need it right now. I need to make money first, and then the phone is later. That doesn't really matter right now. My focus was on my car at that time. I wanted to fix my car, so I didn't really care about my phone, And Kirk heard me. Kirk heard like the guys making fun of me and stuff like that. And it was just jokes,
Peer pressure.
Yeah.
Peer pressure.
Yeah, and like he just laughed and he said, look at my phone. And he had an iPhone 4, right? And then he was like, but look at my keys. And then he had a brand new truck. And like he said, hey, man, it doesn't matter about the phone. And he's like, it just matters about that wallet. And he's like, at the end of the day, he's like, the money's all what matters, bro. If you got your money right and you doing what you're supposed to be doing, your phone don't really matter. Because your phone is just a utensil. Yep. Everything else you got, you can invest in it. He's like, your phone is just a material thing that you're going to need. And then all the other guys, they're young guys. These guys are like, sometimes, most of them are like in their 20s. And so they're like over here like, oh, you know what? Like, I don't even know what I want to do yet. Like, they were asking him what he did.
When I first moved out,
it was crazy.
When I first moved out on my own at 19 years old, I didn't even have a phone probably for 6 months. I remember walking to the payphone, calling my girlfriend. Now you can't even find a payphone. It's just everything's evolved now. And I've often wondered, because my dad was born in the 40s, would he have helped me get a phone if it was, that time when I was in high school? And I don't know that he would have.
No, yeah, that's real, bro. It's just like, I feel like time, like you said, like you always talk, every single time you talk, you're like, oh, 10 years from now, 5 years from now. Mm-hmm. I'm always thinking, like, imagine in my head, like, what that time was like. Because, now, like, your phone is an essential, bro. If you don't have your phone, you feel kind of weird. You have to make calls. You have to make texts. You got things to look at.
I remember a fella told me one time, he said, when you get that phone number, don't ever change it.
Yeah.
Because you don't know who's kept it 10 years down the line, and they may have an opportunity for you, and want to get a hold of you, job or whatever. If you kind of want to stay in contact, but it's hard to stay in contact with everybody you come across. But if they've had that phone number and you've had that phone number for years and years, you're easier to contact. But if you're one of these that change your phone number every year or so, nobody's ever going to find you.
Yeah, that's true.
I remember somebody told me that, keep that, and I've had the same phone number for 22 years.
A whole lot of contacts there.
Yeah, and I don't ever take a contact out when they go in. I don't know how many phone numbers I've got. Old tenants, they may call, and you might have had a bad experience with them. Okay, I don't want to talk to them, so you just let that go to voicemail.
No, yeah, that's true. I think that's one thing that I've always kept in mind because, I met so many people throughout the podcast, even just me being here in high school, like Miss Johnson from up front and Miss Dell and stuff like that. These are teachers that like I did today. I just go and tell them, like, hey, Miss Johnson, I got a guest coming in. And she's like, okay, that's cool. And then she already knows, like, what's going on. And so it's so good. One thing I've always said about high school that I've had, just I'm not even in high school, but outside of high school in the real world and stuff like that, just having good relationships with people.
Yes.
Because I feel like sometimes it's not about the money, it's not about the college degree, it's not about who you're around or all that stuff. I think it's just more about those contacts.
You can have a college degree, but if they don't like you, they're not going to hire you.
Yeah.
Your people skills, you got to have good people skills.
Yeah, I feel like that's one thing that I would say, like, I really truly work on a lot. Like, just being able to create good relationships with people because, like you said, you never know who that person's going to be in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's one thing that I always keep in mind. You know, there's so many guys here in my class, like Christian, you know, he takes photos and stuff like that for, like, anything of weddings and stuff like that, for anything. And so he does that. Now his business is taking off. He's doing his own thing, and he's in my grade, you know?
Yeah.
And, like, me and him, we're probably the guys who took this more serious, like the media side of stuff.
And he has that talent for taking pictures, where they could probably hand me and you a camera, and because everybody's got their own little avenue that works for them.
Nah, yeah, that's true.
They can hand me a camera to take pictures, and they're gonna be disappointed.
Yeah.
Just because you got the camera in your hand don't mean you use it well.
Yeah, no, that's true. I feel like that's one thing I would say, like, for us, which is really important. I think it's just that you got to find what you love, and be able to, just take a swing at it, Like, all this happened in a span of a couple months. So when I first came into this class, I was more focused on the music side of this. Mm-hmm. So I want to do, like, music producing. I want to control the music, control the audio and stuff like that. And I got into it. I learned a little bit. I started doing my own little thing. But I kind of felt like I wanted to learn more. I wanted to learn as much as I could by the time I was out of here. I didn't want to just my time be focused on one thing. Because if that thing don't work, you need to have a backup plan. So I was like, you know what? I need to do something different.
Backup plan a few times.
Yeah, so I wanted like, just look at, different aspects, different things. Mr. D, not only, one of the guys that's helped out the school in general, but also, elevated our program really high. There's not a lot of high schools that have a studio like we do. They don't have all these setup, all these different type of technologies. No other school in Cleveland has a podcast but us. So that's one thing that I would say, like, that I decided to do because, I was tired of the new stuff and all that old stuff. I just felt like it was too old. I felt like we need to bring the new things into it,
right.
And I feel like the podcast was just a new venue now. Everybody's doing podcasts. Everybody likes it. And me personally, I feel like I could do it. I was like, you know what? I'm really good at talking. I have a lot of connections. I can bring people in. And, this year is probably the hardest year I had of just trying to reach out to people and be like, hey, do you want to come on the podcast and stuff like that? Because a lot of people I reached out to are guys that are in college right now, that are athletes. I got a couple of soccer players coming in future videos you're going to see a couple months from now. When they get out of season, I'm gonna have a football player, a Division I football player coming in, and we're gonna talk about just his college experience and stuff like that. And then I got another NIA kid from Bryan College that is coming in, and he's gonna talk more about the soccer side of stuff. And he's bringing a kid that is overseas. He's from Brazil. And he's gonna talk about his experience about getting recruited overseas. And so I'm gonna have him coming on, and I got a nurse coming on, and there's just a bunch of people coming in, like
all walks of life.
All types of things. This year I'm focused more on diversity. I want to be able to bring different people. That's why I brought you in, because I know you know more about real estate. You know more about just being able to, I think, just live your life, transition from high school to what it is now. Because I know the market has changed now from what houses were 10 years from now.
What I did. My path I took to get here, I don't think that path is there anymore.
Yeah.
But there could be opportunities, I see people on Facebook, when I bought my first house, we didn't have Facebook.
Yeah.
People looking for a house, and they call it rent to own. The correct term would be owner finance.
Yeah.
But people ain't doing that right now because they don't have to. But that may come back someday. I was 20 years old. I was fixing to turn 21, but I think I was 20, and I bought my first house. It wasn't, hey, I'm proud of this house, but it was an investment place to live, and it's turned out good for me. I gave $20,000 for that house, and I sold it a few weeks ago. And I was figuring up in rent that I collected, just did a rough idea. And I collected on, and this was probably, from 97 to, so it's 26 years. I collected about $140,000 in rent on that house for a $20,000 investment.
That's super good.
Yeah, I mean, but
over so many years, right?
Yeah, it wasn't overnight. It was the money kept coming in, like where you've lived at your house, and I know y'all don't have a desire to buy the house, and y'all been good to me, and I try to be good to you, but you take $5,000 a year, and you times that for 10 years, that's $50,000.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And you don't think about that, but over time, the real estate does give back, and it typically goes up in value.
Yeah.
Stocks go up and down, and stocks are a good investment,
Yeah.
but
have you ever got into stocks?
Nah, I have some stocks, but I don't even know what I got, because I just go to Edward Jones guy, and I give him money, and he buys me stock, and I look at the number every month that I've made or lost, and I just keep going.
Yeah.
I always call that my nursing home money.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Like I was gonna talk a little bit about just like now, like your life now. Like, what's one thing that you would say that that has changed over the years now that you're older? You're on your way to retirement, I think I would say, if that's what your plan is.
I think in 20, 15 years, I'll be doing the same thing I'm doing now. It seems to work okay for me.
Yeah.
I don't like getting up early and going to work anymore. So, I'm not rich, I'm not poor, but I have a comfortable life.
Yeah.
I can trade cars every now and then, take a couple of vacations a year. So I'm good.
Yeah, I do know.
I do eat out every day, and that gets expensive.
Yeah, but oh yeah, people don't know about this, but me and Mr. George, man, we went all the way to New York together to go drop off a car.
Yeah, my nephew owns a company here in Cleveland called Danco, and one of his employees had sold a car online, and it was a Christmas present, and I took it. The employee asked me if I'd run that car up there for him, and we made a deal, and I took it up there, and Mr. George here across from me, he got to see part of the country he'd never seen before. I don't know if he's disappointed, but he still got to see part of the country he'd never seen.
Man, that was crazy because, like, I remember, I think it was in Virginia. Virginia took forever.
Yes, Virginia took forever.
Bro, it took forever. I swear, I thought we were, like, I remember, like, we were in Virginia maybe, like, for, like, 3-4 hours. I swear. Like, we were in Virginia forever. Like, I remember, like, I would look to, like, the side of the roads, and, like, you would see the deer on the side of the roads.
I remember I'd point deers out. I bet we saw 100 deer.
Yeah, literally. I think there was one point I remember where, like, you could just see all the deers, like, on the side of the road just waiting for us to, like, drive by for them to cross.
And another thing I do since I call it semi-retired now is if a hurricane or something hits, I do volunteer work, and I'll drive supplies to the hurricane tornado site. I've done that. Last year I went down to Fort Myers, Florida 3 times to deliver hurricane supplies. When he had the tornado in Selma, Alabama, I took them a truckload of stuff. When we had the water issue up in Kentucky, I took them supplies, so I do, try to give back to people where I can, where my talents are.
Yeah.
But I do a little volunteer driving from every now and then.
No, yeah, I know, like, you have told me about that before, and honestly, man, one of these days, I might go on one of those trips, but...
Well, you don't ever know when they're coming, because the weatherman kind of predicts all that.
Yeah, you really never know, but yeah, that's one thing that I always remember. Like, you always tell me how you're always going to different places, stuff like that. My mom's like, "Oh, where's Mr. George at?" I'm like, I don't know. He's probably somewhere doing deliveries or something like that. Especially when the Florida stuff was coming around.
Yeah, I
like
went
you were really,
times.
yeah, you went like 2 or 3 times.
I went 3 times. That was a long trip to Fort Myers and back in a Hertz Penske truck.
No, yeah, that's true, bro. It's just a lot of things that me and Mr. George, man, I'm not gonna lie, like, all the time I've been living where I've been living, it's just been chill. Like, I feel like in other spots where I've been at, like, it's just so much activity,
Chaos.
Crazy stuff going on, like, there, Mr. Tim does his own thing, Mr. Jason does his own thing, I do my own thing. We collaborate all together sometimes, we make a little cookout, we invite everybody to pull up, and we have fun, it's just chill. Like, it's chill vibes, because, like, one thing that I've always thought is, be cool with the people you live around,
Yeah, because you got to live around them.
Yeah, you got to live around them.
If you make an enemy out of them, it's not going to be good.
It's not going to be nice.
It's not going to work out. I mean, it's going to be an uncomfortable situation.
Yeah. I've always just tried to be, like, the best version of me, I always try to help people, stuff like that. Sometimes Mr. Jason needs help, I need his help. And it's just good, because when you got connections, when you got people, like, that you can, like, you just reach out to.
Yeah.
it's just good, especially when when you get along with your neighbors, you're gonna be good, like,
If you don't get along
you
with
know,
your
I have had,
neighbors, you're not going to be a happy person.
yeah, yeah, that's true. I'm Hispanic, so we have a lot of celebrations and stuff like that all the time. So I feel like sometimes, we got some big little parties or something like that, and I just tell Mr. Tim like, hey, I'm gonna have some people coming over and stuff like that. I don't know if we're gonna have enough parking. And like he be telling me, like, oh, don't worry about it. You can park in front of my house, or you can even park in my yard. I'm not gonna be there today. And like we fill out his whole parking spot. He doesn't care. He's like, it's cool as long as y'all leave my little parking spot right here close to the road. I don't care. I'm like, bet.
As long as you told him ahead of time, not just spring it on him.
Yeah, that's one thing, bro. It's all about respect, bro. I feel like respect goes a very long way. If you respect people, man, people are
their space and expect them to respect your space.
Yeah, bro. People are gonna be cool with you. The problem is when people try to overstep other people's take other people's kindness as a weakness. That's one thing that will get you in trouble.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the most important lesson that I've learned is just be smart about your decisions. No matter where you come from or who you think you are or how big you think you is or how old you think you are, it doesn't matter. Because whether you're an old guy or whether you're younger, you have to respect each other. It doesn't really matter. I feel like people want to say, like, oh, yeah, you have to respect your elders, stuff like that. But the elder also has to respect you. Because if you want a young guy to respect you, you have to earn that. Like an older person is going to get respected by the way that he treats people and like his actions towards you. And I think that's one thing that I learned from you a lot was like, hey, man, this dude just comes here for business, straight business. And, we're cool and stuff like that. I never thought like, oh, shoot, I'm going to go with my landlord all the way to New York. I never would have thought about that. Never would have thought I would have made it to his house and be able to like get to know him for real. It's just cool. It's a cool experience because
we had a lot of long talks on that trip.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, we did, man. It was crazy, bro. That was a crazy trip. But yeah, I just think the snow and the bears was crazy. Bears, bro. The bears
were crazy.
Dude, the bears are crazy, bro. That guy had bears like outside of his house fenced. And then
bears.
Yeah, pet bears. Like I'm not talking like no little bears you'll see. Like I'm talking like these bears are big, man.
He said the female bears, he had 8 females and they were 800 pounds apiece, and he didn't want a male bear. It was supposed to be a rehabilitation thing or something.
Yeah.
But he said a male bear weighed 1,500 pounds, but those females were big enough.
Yeah, that's true.
Pet one of them, but he didn't want to get them excited.
That's true, bro. I have like videos and stuff of it. But like it's real, bro. Like those bears, bro. I had never witnessed that in my life. I'm Hispanic, man. I don't go out there, trying to explore new animals or anything like that. I'm by myself, bro. If I meet a dog, I meet a new dog. You feel me? But I never thought I was gonna meet a big bear. When I saw that bear, I told Mr. George like, bro, that's a bear, and he was like, yeah, and I was like, no way. We walked into his garage and like this big garage he had, and then you just see bears, a bunch of bears. Like he had a whole cage inside, and it was just full of bears.
I'm taking a trip, and let's see, not this Sunday, but next Sunday. I'm going right around South Dakota and Colorado. And there's a park called Custer State Park, and they got buffalo that just walk up to your car. I've seen it's on YouTube and stuff, and I look forward to. I mean, I ain't gonna get out with the buffalo. I'll stay in my car, but I look forward to going through there and seeing those buffalo.
No, yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, bro.
Of course, we have some buffalo out on Highway 60 here in Cleveland, but they don't run up to your car as you go through the state park.
Yeah, facts. No, yeah, I feel like Cleveland has evolved a lot. Ever since I've been young, I think just Cleveland changed a lot. Just from going to a small town, with a lot of criminal activity to now being more controlled. The cops are more lenient, I feel like sometimes, but they help out a lot of the people in the community. And I think that's one thing that I would say about Cleveland that is like awesome, because in Chattanooga, like the crime is out of control. Cops can't control that no more. They try, but it's just so hard, when you have so many things going on in one city that has become really big.
I think our Cleveland Police Department, they get out and try to meet the people in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And, oh, so-and-so did this. Well, they know that person. They'll go to that person and talk to them. And I think that helps. That helps, Chattanooga, there's just so many there. They can't get out and make community contacts like we can here at this. We're still a small town, but I've watched it grow. And I remember when this was there. I remember Paul Huff wasn't there. It was growing. And I remember when they were building APD 40. I mean, but I didn't realize it took so long. But my dad told me one time, he goes, I remember going to something in the late 50s, and they went down South Lee Highway,
Oh.
and they were working on APD 40 then. It didn't open up to the 70s.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Nah.
But now
like,
we can't wait that long for stuff to get built.
Yeah.
It's just a whole different world now.
Yeah, bro. That's one thing that I would say, bro. Construction is like,
Yeah, there's always going to
dude,
need some
the only
construction.
job that if you don't know what to do after high school, you're trying to make some good money, construction. Trust me, bro. Like,
It's going to be hard on your body, and there's going to be
Yeah.
long, hot hours outside, but it is a good, it's always going to be there.
yeah, bro. It's a job that is never ending, bro. It's like being a barber. Barbers are always gonna have a
Everybody's hairs
job.
are growing.
Everybody's hair's gonna grow, man. Mechanics the same, bro.
Yeah.
Cars are always gonna break down. You're gonna need somebody to fix them. That's just jobs that are gonna be here forever. And I think that's one thing that I would say to all the high school kids out there. If you're trying to do something with your life and you don't really know what you're trying to do, just shoot, bro. Shoot your shot. Don't care about what everybody else, all your other friends are going to college, that whatever they're doing, that's their business. Because when you leave high school, one thing that I've learned that I always think about every summer when I leave high school, and I leave every summer, I think about my head. I was like, this is how it's gonna feel when you leave high school. Your friends don't text you no more as much. You're probably working all the time, so you don't even got time to hang out with people. You know, you're doing things. People think that you disappeared. They don't even know if you're coming back to school. That's how basic it's gonna be when you leave high school. Your friends you had are gonna be gone. You ain't really gonna be able to talk to these guys. They're probably still gonna talk to you, but they're gonna be busy too.
They
busy
won't
with
be
their
your
work.
friend, but they got their life. You got yours.
Yeah.
It's completely changed. They
Yeah.
might get a job offer somewhere and move off, and it's hard to keep contact. That's why one of the reasons going back to try to keep that same phone number.
Yeah.
They might get a job in Nashville, might get a construction job in Las Vegas or something, and you go off and they start their life there. Well, I'm coming back. Well, where's old George at? Well, okay, I remember him. I'll give him a call. You just gotta be around.
Dude, that just happened with Miss Johnson right now when he walked in. Like, Miss Johnson was like, I know you from somewhere. And then he was like, oh, you work with my brother. And I was like, oh, shoot.
Everybody, it's
like,
still
yeah.
a small town. There's people, everybody knows everybody, especially in my generation. Yeah, I remember
Mm-hmm.
them in high school, We all had our bumps around, along the road.
Yeah.
But, made our mistakes made, and you're going to make mistakes in life. That's just life.
Yeah.
If you did make mistakes there, you're lying.
Yeah, facts. Yeah, that's true. Nah, yeah, like don't be afraid. If you're young, you're trying to chase something, don't be afraid, man. When I got this opportunity to make this podcast, it happened off of something that was really crazy. What happened was there was gonna be an announcer, right? Cleveland was gonna wrestle against Bradley in the arena, but they didn't have nobody to interview the wrestlers after they were done with their matches. And so Mr. D asked me, he's like, "Hey, you wanna do it?" And I'm like, "Sure, I'll do it." And he was like, you for sure? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, it's gonna be live. Like, there's no cutting, there's no editing, there's nothing. It's live. It's gonna be on the big screen. And I said, all right, let's do it.
I remember.
And so
I wanted to announce one time baseball games. The guy did it. I wasn't good at sports, but the guy was doing it. He graduated. I thought I'd like to get that gig and announce at the baseball game, but they never would give it to me. I think it was because my country voice. I'm not sure.
and, yeah, bro. So that's what happened. So after that, I got the chance and I did it. I honestly did better than what I thought I was gonna do. I didn't have any problem. Just I knew wrestling. I know a lot of sports. So
Okay.
I watch all types of sports. I used to wrestle, so I know wrestling. I used to play football, so I know
I
football.
remember you talked about playing football.
Yeah, I played soccer all my life, so I know soccer. I've watched hockey a lot now. Got into it because, I got some New York coaches, and so they're into hockey and baseball. So I got into baseball, started watching the Yankees a little bit more, and just got into the mix. Just started watching a lot of games and started knowing new teams.
Know a little
and
bit
stuff.
to get through it.
Yeah, like my point was like in my future, I was thinking like, you know what, I could really be an announcer if I wanted to because I know all these sports and like, I can really do it. And so I was fortunate that I had the chances growing up to play so many different sports. I watched basketball all the time, and so it's kind of like I learned all these different sports and stuff like that. Now when it came to that moment, I just kept on remembering all the things I would hear from other announcers, like I'm gonna use this word, I'm gonna use that word, and it was just easy. It just came together. Honestly, I did not expect it to go the way it went, and that happened. And then people started reaching out to me. I got interviewed by Mix 104 at one point on live television. And so that kind of gave me a little bit more exposure. So I decided, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make my own podcast. I feel like this gonna do so good.
Yeah.
And I want to do it for myself because I feel like, you know what, no other high school is doing it. I want to be the first one. And I was like, I want to make history. I want to be the first guy to be like, hey, bro, that guy was the guy who set the footprint. So that's always been my goal.
I had a friend. He wanted to be a sports announcer. His grandson's here at Cleveland.
Yeah.
I don't know his last name, and you know him because we ate one time when you were at
Yeah,
the
yeah,
restaurant, and
yeah.
his grandfather asked you, but he wanted to be a sports announcer. And he'd
Mhm.
get on and listen to the games, baseball, football, and all that. And he wound up a preacher instead of a sports announcer.
Yeah, I guess he's still talking to people.
Yeah, he's still talking.
No, yeah.
Because that might lead to something else. I ain't saying a preacher, but you don't
Yeah,
know
no,
where.
that's true. You never know, bro. Like, honestly, I feel like that kind of transition to this because now, like, I'm so good at talking to people and stuff like that the same way I was on camera. I'm not afraid to be on camera and stuff like that. It's just natural now. At the beginning, I was the guy behind the scenes. I was the guy doing the audio back there. But now I'm up here. I'm doing my own thing, and I've just transitioned into
Your
this.
advantage will be you're bilingual.
Yeah.
There's not many bilingual
Yeah, that
people
that
out
is true.
there. And you're comfortable going Spanish to English.
Yeah.
And and it's a need that's needed more and more.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think just how many Hispanic people are out now. Like, it's about to be a Hispanic Independence Day on September 16th, which is my birthday this Saturday. And it's something that, for me, my whole life, I just thought about it like a sentimental thing to me because, like, as I grew up and stuff like that, my mom would always say, my grandmother would always call my mom on my birthday and would say, hey, they're shooting fireworks here for George's birthday. And I started laughing. I'd be like, Mom, I don't even have to celebrate my birthday because whole Mexico is celebrating my birthday right now. And it was just like a thing that was really neat to me because I was like, you know what? Like, my birthday's on the day that Mexico got their independence, and which was a crazy way how they got it. But, like, it's just like one thing that I would say about now, especially in Cleveland, there's been so many Hispanics moving in now. And it's just like one thing that, every week there's a new family that is coming in, and it's just like a new step, that I would say, so many like people with one mentality and one goal, which is just to make money and be better than they were
Have a
where they
better
were in their
life than
town.
they had where they came from.
Yeah, and I think that's just like the mentality. Like for me, mentally, like I don't want to be that kid who forgets their roots. I've always said, I love Mexico, and all the time that I always represent Mexico highly. And this is one of my forms to represent it. I've always believed in myself. I think that anything you want to do, you can do it. It doesn't matter whether you're Hispanic, you're black, you're white, whatever your ethnicity is. That doesn't matter. I feel like it just matters that you're determined to do what you want to do, and you just make it happen.
Yeah.
Like Mr. George made it happen when everybody, probably his friends, thought he wasn't gonna be able to do
They
it.
thought I was crazy, and I kind of questioned myself
Yeah.
sometimes too. But
Yeah, like at the same
And it-
time, you gotta
and
believe
it-
in yourself.
It don't happen quick. It takes you years to get there. If it happens quick, it's probably immoral or illegal.
Nah, yeah, that's true. Nah, yeah, but no.
You don't get success. Sometimes there's success stories out there where somebody come up with an idea and made money quick, but
Yeah.
usually it takes years to get there. You don't just start out right on top.
And I feel like it's always just better to live through the process,
Yeah.
live through that process because that will build your character to be the guy you are today. Like I always say, I was like, there's always a reason why you go through things, why things happen in your life. And I think that the most important part is just learning from those mistakes because I feel like so many people want to judge you because of what they hear about you, how they see you. Like, oh, yeah, that kid over there. Yeah, that kid is a bad influence to my kids, to my parents and stuff like that.
I wasn't the best kid in school. I wasn't the best student. I wasn't, I didn't like school. It wasn't where I wanted to be, but it had to be there. I thought.
Yeah, facts. Nah, it's true, bro. I know a lot of kids that I grew up around that made their own thing now. That
Yeah.
are doing their own businesses. Like they're living their life, and like one thing that I've learned from them is just to be you. At some point, I feel like you'll get to the point where you have to learn about yourself, and I think that's really important. Just doing what you got to do. At the end of the day, there's a goal that you have to achieve, and I feel like if that's what you want to do, then do it.
Yeah, that's exactly
Like,
right.
nobody's gonna be able to tell you what you can and what cannot do. When you're here in the USA, they say, oh, if you got a dream, you can make it happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's really true. I think the problem is that people don't know how to really achieve their
What
dreams.
gets me about the people come from foreign countries, they will see opportunity in this country where we never see it because we
Yeah.
were born there. I see that all the time,
Yeah.
And we see people coming from other states, because we still have a middle class in this
Yeah.
part, and they see opportunity where we don't even see it.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just,
true. That's true.
you got to maybe go somewhere else to see the opportunity. Oh, hey, back where I live, we did this. I remember I moved to Augusta, Georgia when I was a kid. I lived down there for 6 years, and they had storage buildings there. I'd never heard of rental storage buildings, but now they're everywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
I wish but that was an opportunity. But as a kid, I didn't,
Yeah.
know how it worked or anything like that.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's one thing that is really important. I think now with the new people that are coming in is just being able to tell Hispanic people like, bro, you know what? No, like I've always told so many Hispanics like, if you're a single man and you're coming here, you're a young guy, bro, straight into construction.
Yeah.
Like it's the one job that
always gonna be
doesn't
there.
really matter. They're not gonna judge you because you're not from here. Like, bro, they want you. You know, like
Yeah,
they need
a
you.
body. They need a body
Yeah.
to carry that concrete.
Yeah, they need somebody extra all the time, bro. Like you got to be that type of person who's relentless. That type of person who doesn't care. Like, you know what? I don't care where I work as long as I get a job and I'm getting paid and I'm doing something. I'm gonna get the experience. You know, the
You get
experience is gonna come.
Something better comes along.
Yeah, like
you keep going.
one thing that Alfredo always said when I worked at the OK McGay was he was like, they might not appreciate you at one place, but another place you're gold. And that's one thing that I learned, like that I've always kept in my head is like, no matter where you're put, like they always say, wherever the plant is planted, there's where it will grow. And I think that's one thing that you gotta know is just be relentless. You know, don't be afraid to go out there and try new things. Don't be afraid to take a risk and be like, you know what, my parents probably think I can't do it. But sometimes your parents are gonna be your biggest haters, man. They're gonna be the people who are gonna be like, nah, I don't think
do that.
Yeah, like nah, you can't do that. You know, like your parents want the best for you, but sometimes they don't see what you see now. Especially now with this generation, new things are coming out all the time. And like my mom, bro, if I tell my mom I'm doing a podcast and I can tell her it can make me money later, she's not gonna think about that. She's gonna think I'm just doing it for fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's just one thing that is different, bro. Every older person has a different mentality what we got now. But
Yeah.
I thank you, Mr. George, for coming out and talking to me. You know,
I've
we've
enjoyed
always
it.
been cool for a long
Yes,
time,
yes.
and I know you're a little hesitant to come on, but hey, it's a little calm setup here. You know, we just chop it up.
I understand.
So thank you, man. Thank you for everything you do, man.
Alrighty.
For all the community, everybody out there. What was your nephew's company that he was promoting, or that he has right now?
I have a nephew. He has a company named Danco,
Dan Cole.
and he owns another little company called Cleveland Fasteners.
Okay. If y'all guys are around town and y'all trying to get some welding done, because that's what he does, right?
Yeah.
If you're trying to get welding done, Danco is your place. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll be back with another episode next week. Thank you.